Welcome back. Another edition, another episode of Professional Rookies. I'm your host, Rene Ingoglia, along with my co-host, good friend, Brian Ferreira, also affectionately known as Beefer or Beef. But we'll get into that in another episode, how that name came about, because I was there that day almost 20 years ago. But anyway, Beef, how was your weekend, my friend?
Oh, it's pretty good. Pretty good. Nothing crazy. Nothing uneventful.
So we're recording this episode at night. Now, I know you got to get up early. You got an early flight tomorrow. You're going on vacation to New Jersey. Not many people say that. But, I mean, you are from Jersey.
I'm going on vacation.
What the hell?
To Jersey. And nothing uneventful, meaning nothing eventful. So, yeah, it was a heck of a weekend. I can't even talk about it. It was so good.
Yeah, not many people. It was 83 today in Orlando. Not many people leave 83 and sunny to fly north to New Jersey in February for vacation, but Brian does. So
where are you going?
God bless you.
I'm going to Newark. It's great. Yeah, it'll be fun. Well, you know what? Listen, I got to go up and get some good pizza.
That's a given, yes.
There's a couple restaurants. You know, I was there until I was 21, so there's a couple restaurants.
See the family, got to see
places
the family.
I got to go, and I got to go see my parents and my sisters and my little niece.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So, we just want to thank everyone so far. Obviously, this is episode 3, and we're getting some good listens, some good downloads. So I think people are starting to like it, take off a little bit. But
browbeating our friends into listening again and again.
Well, as any good broadcaster will tell you, and if you're an aspiring broadcaster out there listening, you always need to listen back to your work. So I always listen to what we do. I always watch what I do on TV. And so there was a couple things I touched on in the last episode where it was pretty much all, my UMass career that I just kind of glazed over. And I know a lot of UMass fans, I think, are listening. So there was a couple things that probably raised their eyebrows that I didn't really elaborate on. So I wanted to kind of touch on that before we get going with the CFL story, the Canadian Football League story, which I know everybody wants to hear.
Oh, I can't wait. We're going backwards to go forward.
But this episode will be called Dreams Do Come True, because in this episode I will eventually sign a contract with the NFL. But we'll get to that. So I mentioned my 2 coaches last episode at UMass. Right. Jim Reed was my first one. Mike Hodges was the second. So Jim Reed, I mentioned, had stepped down abruptly and resigned, referenced some integrity issues, not with him, but with the university. So people are probably like, well, what's he talking about? So in 1992, the University of Massachusetts was the only Division I athletic department in the country that the athletic department was still under the guise of the School of Physical Education. So the dean had a lot to say with the athletic department along with the athletic director. Now, there might have been a few other schools, but I know for a fact the University of Massachusetts was one of the only ones. So it was just kind of an odd dynamic back then. So there was a big push for UMass basketball, which I completely understand. They had hired John Calipari. Football is really expensive. Football is the most expensive sport, bar none. And so there was this kind of crazy talk of trying to create a Division I AAA, which would be non-scholarship, kind of like the Ivy League, but not the intelligence of the Ivy League. So they're just doing all kinds of different stuff back then. And what had happened in 92 was Jim Reed had been on the road recruiting, and he had been in the homes of like 4 or 5 recruits where he offered full scholarships to those players and their families. And because all this was going on, and because the athletic department was under the School of Physical Education, the powers to be said, you can't give out those scholarships. And he goes, no, I went in those people's homes and gave them my word. I'm a man of integrity. I'm not going to take those scholarships off. So there was some infighting there. So he resigned on the spot. So the reason I bring it up is, to me, I think, and a lot of people don't know this story, because it's 30 years ago.
Sure.
To me, Jim Reed was one of the guys that single-handedly kept the UMass football program going.
Okay.
And to the heights it is today, ultimately won a national championship at the 1AA FCS level, played in another one, and now at the FBS level. So, I say that because, people say they have integrity, a person of integrity.
Right.
When you give up a job and you resign on the spot because of that, that says a lot about you. So that's why he always will have a spot in my heart for sure. And then Mike Hodges, my next coach, my last college coach, was the defensive coordinator. So he was kind of put in a tough position. He ended up getting promoted.
Okay.
And did a great job of really just keeping the program on a good trajectory, right? I mean, we were never like, like I said in the last episode, we didn't make these deep runs in the 1AA playoffs, and we weren't earth shattering. But I think in my 4 years under him, we were 28-16, so pretty good,
winning record, yeah.
Better than 500,
sure,
and competitive, and we recruited. And the other thing I think people forget is in 1997 when Mike Hodges stepped down, Mark Whipple took over the program. Now I know Whip. I know Coach Whipple well. He's now at Nebraska. He's the offensive coordinator at Nebraska. He was at Pittsburgh this year. I did the Pitt-Syracuse game for ESPN, so I talked to Whip, and then Whip came back, was a head coach at UMass again. So I've had many conversations with Whip. I think Whip is a tremendous coach and deserves a lot of credit for winning the national championship in 1998.
Right.
What I would say is a lot of those guys that Whip won the national championship with were Mike Hodges guys that were already there, that they had recruited. So that's why I give Coach Hodges a lot of credit. And I don't think Coach Hodges gets the credit in kind of the list of UMass head coaches history.
It's the coach that gets the title, I guess.
And listen, Whipple deserves
it.
I mean, he's a great mind, okay? And I'm not taking anything away from that. What I'm saying is, there were some good players there that were under the Mike Hodges regime, and one was who I believe, and I'm a running back, was the best running back in UMass history, Marcel Shipp, who went on to shatter my records.
Right.
He was there. A funny story on Marcel Shipp. So in 97, so it would have been Mike Hodges last year.
Right.
I was with the Washington Redskins. Now it's the Commanders.
Well, you're jumping ahead here. Hold on.
Well, I know, but I just want to get this story out.
Okay.
And UMass was playing JMU, James Madison, which is in Virginia, Harrisonburg, Virginia. So I went down to the game, and UMass had lost the game, but I was in the locker room, and I remember Coach Hodges coming up to me and telling me about Marcel, and he said, this kid is really good. He has a chance to be special. He just needs to take that next step.
Right.
Will you talk to him? And Marcel probably doesn't even remember this story. So I did. I talked to him for 5 or 10 minutes. And then, of course, he goes on to have, like, the best career in the history of UMass football at running back, so which is great.
I'm assuming he went pro?
Yeah, so Marcel had a great career.
Shows you how much I know.
Had a great career, played for the Cardinals, a really good NFL career. And then another really good running back who's a Central Florida guy, believe it or not, Steve Baylark, played at Apopka.
Okay.
He went to UMass too and shattered a bunch of my records. Those are the two guys that they're pretty much above me. So it's kind of a good segue into the part of me trying to go pro. And then there's one other thing too. Yeah. I had mentioned in the podcast last time when I got to UMass in 91, I had a brain fart. I had mentioned, I said UMass had a running back there that was a senior that moved on, and I had a brain fart back then, but it's Jerome Bledsoe, another great running back who was there, was a senior when I was a true freshman. So I wanted to get that out. But so now we talked about in that last episode, it never, I wanted to get drafted.
Right. That
was the goal.
Right.
It never crossed my mind that if I didn't get drafted, I wouldn't at least get signed as a free agent. It just never crossed my mind. Again, over 4,600 yards rushing, 55 touchdowns at the time, school and conference records. I talked about not going to the combine, but I did work out for 8 or 9 teams. I know the Cleveland Browns, who shortly thereafter became what today is the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, they came up there to UMass. They tested me electronically. I went 4.46, 4.46. So thought my speed was good, but for whatever reason, the draft came and went, and I didn't get signed.
But you're saying that you worked out for the team. So, and this is where a lot of normal people go, how do the pros? It's not something that you can't just say, hey, I'm going to go.
Correct.
So you have teams that come to the colleges?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So when you hear someone say I worked out for a team, essentially it's a job interview. So I went for a job interview.
Okay.
But they usually come to you. But sometimes you do go to them, because I did that as well, and we'll get into that later in this podcast. So Cleveland had come to UMass specifically for me and tested me. And I said I ran really well. And then a couple other, I think, came. We didn't have UMass wasn't big enough back then in terms of potential NFL players to have a pro day. All these schools have pro days now because they all have 10 or 15, 20 prospects.
Okay.
So it's just easy to come. So Boston College had a pro day. I was invited to that. So I went up there, and when I say it worked out, you run the 40, you'll maybe bench press,
right,
vertical leap. They'll throw you some passes, some shuttle runs. So I know I went to Boston College. I went to Williams College, which is in Massachusetts, Division III. They had an offensive lineman that was getting recruited. So I went up there when they were there to work them out.
Okay.
And I'll never forget. So the Patriots were there. The Cowboys were there.
Oh, wow.
The Patriots were there. So the scout that was there, I don't remember his name, but I ran a 40 and he got me at like 4.38. And he was like, he couldn't believe it. So he was like, basically telling me that he screwed up.
Something messed up. Yeah.
So now I'm like, okay, well, now I'm screwed because when I run again, he's going to be slow. And this was the old-fashioned, stopwatch that you hold. He's going to be slow because he doesn't want to go back.
Was that from a static start, or was that from like a running start?
No, static start. No, three-point start. So, and again, and so I run again twice, and I think he got me at like 4.51 and 4.50. So I knew he was a little slow, but, whatever. So anyway, I ended up working out for, maybe 10 teams. So,
and over how long of a time period is that? Is that like within a week? Within 2 weeks?
Yeah. So like, the draft is in April.
Okay. So
it's kind of the winter months, right?
Okay.
Like kind of now, like after January, February, March, like right in there. But again, the draft comes and goes, and I don't get signed. So now I'm just kind of like bewildered. Like, what am I going to do now? And this is, I'd made this comment in the last show. This agent that I had signed with, that was a mistake on my part. But hey, it's life, right? You make mistakes.
You hear that a lot, though. I don't think there's a manual for that. Like, hey, how to pick an agent, or
there's not. Listen,
it's almost a relationship.
I got wooed.
That you have to trust somebody.
He flew me into New York. We went to dinner and just made the wrong mistake. My eyes got big, and
did he talk a good game?
Sure, he did. Well, you better as an agent, right?
Right.
At the end of the day, though, the agent's not making any money unless you make money.
Sure.
So they have to have faith in you.
Yeah.
What had happened in that situation was once I didn't get drafted or signed, he immediately I got pushed to the back, and other guys that he had that did get drafted,
right.
And he ended up falling into a first rounder that year. So it was all about him. So I really got screwed.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was going to make a ton of money with the first rounder. So he goes, go to Canada. It's okay. I'll sign it, get a contract in Canada, go get established in Canada, and then come back. And I'm like, okay, well, I didn't know what to do. So I did. So I signed a 2-year contract. Everything's kind of a 2-year contract, but there's no guarantee, right? You sign these contracts, but there's no guarantee.
Okay, but hold on. So let's go back. So, you really have this you're doing so well at UMass. You have this, you could taste it, right? You could taste the pros. I can hear as you talk now, there wasn't a scenario where you didn't think you were going to be there somehow or other.
I thought I'd get into a camp, right?
Sure.
So
but that doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
And he says, go to Canada. Like, how do you feel? Like,
well, you don't know what to feel because you're kind of shell-shocked because you just had what you thought was a really good college career.
Right.
Your numbers are testing good, even for the individual workouts. And you can't even get into a camp to try to, make a team, to show an NFL team.
Did you send follow-up gift baskets to all the teams after the tryouts?
No.
Oh, see, I think that might be the problem.
Doesn't quite work like that. No. So I signed this contract with the Montreal Alouettes.
Okay.
So I live in Rochester, New York. So I drive from Rochester to Montreal. It's like 8 hours or something.
Going to Canada.
I go to Canada, and I don't even remember what the head coach's name was, but I remember that.
I think we'll know why.
But I remember the general manager's name. His name was Jim Pop, and I actually think if he's not there, he's still in the Canadian football.
Right.
So, because he happens to be an American guy. But anyway.
He did well too.
So I go to Canada, and so the first day we have like meetings, and like an afternoon practice, and it's just kind of easy, right? It's the first day, so
doesn't make it any better.
So we have meetings, we have practice, then we have meetings again at nighttime. Right. So I'm like, okay, nothing really happens in practice, nothing spectacular, and so we come down, and I had